Welcome to Soothing the Unsettled Mind. And we're going to be talking about how you can relax into calm, cultivating calm. Because calm feels good. It's just a nice space to be in. And it doesn't feel good when we're revved up, when we're in our heads, when we're just not in the moment. And usually when we're calm, we're in the moment. We are experiencing life in the flow of life. So we'll be having a conversation with Wendy Williams. Say that again because I would like to say your name correctly. We will be having a conversation with Wendy Williams. And Wendy is joining us today. She is a lifelong learner, awake to opportunities to shine a light on all things wise and whole. So she's a nurse educator. She specializes in psychological health, and she sees people's inner spark and capability. She weaves together background as a nurse with her experience in cancer, HIV, AIDS, and chronic pain and end of life. She knows from experience that everyone is made to live well and to flourish. Hi, Wendy.
Hi there, Rich. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is just a wonderful opportunity to talk about this really important subject. Like you, I'm a United States citizen, and the past few months there's been a lot of invitations to rev up, a lot of invitations to to think hard, think fast, think on your feet, and try to talk people into your way of thinking. And it's just, you and I opened the conversation. You said you had an unusual Thanksgiving for a couple different reasons. And I said, oh, did somebody not show up because of the election? You said, no, that's not what happened. And it didn't happen in my family either, but I've been reading a lot. So I'm just using that as an example that may be somewhat relatable, no matter where in the world you live, that sometimes these seasons of life, seasons of country life can really pull us away from that calm space. And so I'm just kind of recognizing that I personally am coming out of that and kind of settling in a little bit more in terms of being a United States citizen. But, in day-to-day life, things happen. And I was just sharing with you again, Rich, before we started, that a period of quiet, just to literally take a deep breath and just sit quietly. I don't even call it meditation, just quiet, and try to close down my ears, ignore my phone, rest my eyes, lower my shoulders. I love what you called it, a speed bump. I don't think they call it speed bump in Europe. There's a different word for it.
Yes, we do.
You call it a speed bump? Okay, yes, we do. Somebody said, okay, great. And so, yeah, just to take some time. So, our conversations about cultivating calm. And that's one thing about cultivating calm. And why cultivate calm? Why attempt to lower the volume on the inner mind? Is because what we talk about often in the inside out paradigm, or the three principles, is that creativity, clearer guidance comes when there is a quieter mind. So while sometimes we don't have to do much to get to a quieter mind, what I was taught coming up and as a nurse was that when my mind was busy, that meant I was really thinking well, and I had to categorize things and make decisions and act on this and act on that. And the more I don't know if the right word is, the more jazzed up I was, that meant I was really thinking with all the quarters of my brain, and, what I've since come to learn is that's not the operating instructions for the human experience. And with Sid Banks and all the teachers in this conversation, we now know what the operating instructions are. We now I've been fighting the system. And now that I know that the system works really, really well, and that what I am revved up about is what I have thought of or created or built a case for in my mind, but it's not the whole story. There's always so much more, so much deeper, and things that I don't know yet. And if I quiet down, I might be able to get to some of that. So I love this conversation that I'm having by myself here. I'm loving this monologue. But I mean, I love the subject of cultivating calm. Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of my dad has a car that has a paddle shifter in it. So it's got an automatic transmission, but it also has a paddle shifter, so he can manually manipulate the shifting of the car. And we were on a highway one time, and he accidentally pressed the paddle shifter, and then he started to overcorrect. And so he's pressing it up and pressing it down and doing all of these things with the paddle shifter. And of course we're going like 15 miles an hour on the highway. And the car is just like, he's pressing on the gas. The engine is firing, but it's not engaged. And a lot of the times I feel like that's what stress is. That's what pressure is that revving up without being actually engaged with life.
Oh, that's vivid. That's very vivid. Yeah. Yeah. Or engaged. I've often used the term engaged in terms of how married am I to my thoughts. I can be flirting with them. I can notice them. I can flirt with them. I can ask them out on a date. I can go steady with them, and I can become engaged to them, and I can marry them, and so I like that term engagement in general terms. But yeah, and just learning how our system works, it's always, and this is really great because just this weekend I read something from Jamie Smart saying our system is always self-correcting, which as a nurse makes great sense to me. And people on this call that may know me well enough are probably so bored with my bodily examples, but I'm a nurse, and we nurses, everybody in the world, depends on the fact that our bodies have our back, excuse the expression, and our bodies are always equilibrating, saying, oh, did she take enough oxygen? Oh, maybe not. Okay. Oh, let's see. Okay. Oh, she just drank something a half hour ago. We got to make some urine here. Let's go down the kidneys. And, all this stuff is going on without my permission, without my know-how, without my messing around with it. And it's always, quote unquote, self-correcting or finding that middle ground to keep me healthy. And sometimes I can get a kidney infection and my body says, ow, 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 ow. So I go, oh, I better pay attention to that. So it's self-correcting. It's telling me, ow. So I get to the doctor and get back in. And so I didn't know. No one told me in nursing school. No one told me in church. No one told me at, anywhere where I was getting education, that my mind and my experience had the same self-correcting mechanism. And so I went around, if something came up and bothered me, it needed to be addressed. I needed to focus on it, fix it, slap it down, take care of it, whack-a-mole, and everything outside of myself I interpreted in certain ways, And it might be very different from the way you would interpret it. Right. But that's what I did, interpreted things. And that's what we all do. And I assigned it a score. 0, forget about it. 10, oh boy, this is what. And so I was always trying to cope, manage life. And now that I know that the owner's manual says, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. The self-correcting, it has qualitatively changed my life. Since 2018, Katrina and I are in that same time span. Oh, anyway. So yeah, it's just qualitatively changed my life. I just do not have the same level of overdrive and overcompensating, and my car isn't doing this anymore. It's kind of keeping on the highway pretty steady. And when I have to get off the highway and refuel, I do. And I don't have to wait till it's running on empty and the motor's knocking. I don't have to wait for that anymore. Do we have any more analogies that we could bring up, or any more metaphors that we could bring up? Maybe. There's always time.
Who knows? The metaphors just work beautifully with the understanding, because it's not direct. It's not through the intellect. And that's so hard for, I think, a lot of people, and maybe you're listening to this too, where you want that direct, okay, A plus B equals C, here's the formula. And it's just kind of like a go-to, like, okay, if the car is revving up in this way, I go and do this. And that's just not how our minds work in the moment. There's not a one-size-fits-all.
Right.
And it's funny because we can kind of have this like effect of, we try something out and then it seems to really work. And it's like, okay, I found the thing. And then it loses its effectiveness, and then something's wrong with the thing, or something's wrong with us. And it's just this trap, this cycle that we can get into. Then we search for the next thing.
Yeah.
And the next thing. And I was caught in that. I was doing that for years and years and years. But this is different. That's why the metaphors work. It's speaking to you in a different way. It's speaking beyond the intellect to a deeper space, that life that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking to that inner knowing, that life within you.
Yeah. One of my nicknames in the hospitals where I used to work as a nurse, and around the campfires with, young adult groups I used to go camping with every once in a while, I was known as Nurse Wendy, the queen of analogies, because just to explain many a health concern, like, your kidneys are sort of like a cleaning house, and so using analogies is something that I think helps probably a lot of healthcare providers, because some of the science is just not recognizable to everybody. So you learn to say, talk in analogies. So yeah, I find them quite useful in this conversation, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, I was an English teacher, and I did creative writing major when I was in school. So of course, similes, metaphors. Oh yeah, it's great. And now I get to use them in this understanding, and they're so powerful because they're symbolic. They're symbolic of something greater.
Yeah.
And that's what we're pointing to here, is it's not the symbolism, it's the something greater that you have within you. Yeah. So that's why they are so engaging for people in this conversation, because they connect with something inside of them, something greater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend that has I don't even like the word, but a significantly disabled daughter. And this child is like 10 or 12 years old, and I've seen pictures of her. She's quite beautiful. I've not met her in person. She's got two brothers. And this mom is in this conversation too. And what she shares about how her daughter, who's nonverbal, and she requires quite a bit of care, has become such a beautiful teacher for her, for my friend, the woman, because she's able to see another human being respond beautifully to life in a very different way, in a way that she doesn't, because she's able-bodied and, she can, but her daughter has become such a beautiful source of clarity in this understanding, for her in a way that she didn't quite see before. And so the metaphors can be alive and living examples of something. It's not just fun words and describing, but you can actually, you can't see where I'm seeing, but it's beautiful, bright sunshine where I am. And there's a lot of things in my life, circumstances in my life, and me and my husband's life, that feel worrisome, deserve immediate attention. We had to talk with a lawyer today. So it could feel cloudy, but it's actually quite sunny. And the sun is always shining, even behind the lawyer call, even behind the other things that need to be paid attention to, and there are things that are worrisome or that I need to pay attention to. But I know for darn sure, me getting revved up and worried and wringing my hands, something would happen before I met the principals, and I would say, and I would call 10 lawyers, and I would call 5 people and say, do you have any names of lawyers? And I would be speed dialing, and I'd be calling people, and I'd be taking notes, and I'd be on the internet, whatever. And now it just doesn't feel like that. One person said, oh, I happen to know a lawyer. And I called that person today, and they said, I've been expecting you to call all weekend. Tell me about blah, 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 blah. And I was like, it was the easiest conversation, and it required no effort on my part. None. Really, nothing. Things will come when I can hear it. But if I'm busy messing around in there, I can't hear it. I can't sense it. I can't get a read on the direction. So the sunshine, even at night, in the night sky, the sun is shining somewhere in my world, on the planet. And that's just always true. So I guess with my friend who has this daughter, she can look at her daughter and get grounded, because she's like, she sees something in real life. She doesn't have to, words don't have to come to her. She doesn't have to read a poem about her daughter. She doesn't have to come up with fancy words or fancy metaphors. She just looks at this child and says, oh yeah, life is good. Yeah. It's been very powerful, as she shared about this girl over the years with me. Very powerful. Yeah.
What's beautiful in that is that she's in her own head, living her own life. And then when she connects with this other person who sees life differently, because we all have a different experience of life. We all have separate realities.
Yeah. And
then she can see that, and that depersonalizes her own thoughts, her own experience. It becomes a more focus on a humanistic identification. Not just me, but the humanistic of,
Right,
oh, this
right.
is our experience of life.
Right, right. There's a
And
million
it's all
different
the
ways
same.
it's a million different ways to look at this, but underneath it all, we're all just wanting to connect and be happy and feel the love. And evidently this daughter does a really good job of that. Oh, we have somebody that wants to speak.
Go ahead, Angelina, rather.
That was totally accidental.
Oh,
But here I am. Yeah, listening to you speak, Wendy, and you, Rich, coming in there, I think it's very much about connecting with the essence of who we are and connecting with the essence of who somebody else is. So I suppose, to confess, Wendy was talking about me and my daughter.
yes, I was.
So for many years, I would have seen my daughter as being disabled. I saw her disability. She's a wheelchair user. She's nonverbal. All her care needs are provided for by myself and her dad. And I saw my life as very small and very limited and confined, maybe. And then I came across the principles, and I suppose for me, I went from, to quote maybe Dick and Bettinger a bit, I was very contracted. I was, feeling restricted all of the time. And then Sid's teaching sort of opened up a whole new world for me. So living under that, I suppose, cloud, and being Irish, we've lots of grey clouds over here. I didn't know the sunshine was behind it. And Sid's teachings opened that up and showed me that there is a blue sky. And what I started to see, metaphorically speaking, was this blue sky within my daughter, and how much she loves life, how she lives her best life every day of the week with no judgment, no blame, no resentment, no overthinking, none of it. She loves herself. She loves her body. She has nothing on it. And to realise that is available for all of us, but for all the thinking we do all of the time. And she totally, I was typing it into the chat box, and then I was so slow, Wendy, the moment was gone. But what I heard you describe is that you live at the speed of life rather than the speed of your thinking. And that's what my daughter does. She just lives at the speed of life. So when I look at her today, when I'm all revved up, she's not. And it's an invitation for me to come back to who I really am. And I think that's there for all of us, that invitation to come back and just be in the present moment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's where all the beauty of life is.
Yeah, I love that metaphor of an invitation, because I think the invitations are everywhere around us, but we don't open them. We don't see them, right? We can get caught up in thinking, oh yeah, that sounds good for you, but I think once we use the word but in any sentence, we have kicked inner wisdom, we've kicked mind out of the throne of life, and we've put our personal mind right in the middle of the situation and making all these judgments and assessments. Anytime we say, well, yeah, that's all good for you, but then I know I'm in trouble. So yeah, cultivating calm is, if there's a way to somehow just be aware that there are always invitations to get to the speed of life rather than the speed of my thinking. And the invitation is open. It's always there. It's never a closed invitation, and it's 24/7. That awareness has made a huge, huge difference in my life. Just that awareness of that the calm is always there, always with me, and built in for a reason. And sometimes I say, yeah, I know I'm built for calm, but that's just life. That's just being human. And sometimes I do that. I let things run away and get a little bit crazy. That's fine. I'm just a human being. And those times literally are shorter on the clock and on the calendar. They don't go nearly as deep. And there's always, I always call it like that little quarter-inch, little half-inch space above my head that says, don't forget, you're feeling your thinking. You're not feeling the world. You're not feeling reality with a capital R. I'm like, oh yeah, right. Yeah. So.
I actually love that you brought up the but factor. Because I and then, yeah, don't take this the wrong way. But because I think I had maybe an insight around that recently where I was driving and I was thinking about how a lot of my clients have those types of sentences where they say, I know that everything's my thinking, but this situation is different. I know that I'm made for calm, but I have all of this circumstance in my life that's going on that feels like a hurricane right now. And the thing is that whatever they say before the but is spiritual truth. It's, I am made for calm. That's spiritual truth. And then the but is trying to create an exception.
Yeah.
And only your intellectual mind, only your non-spiritual mind, your intellectual personal mind creates exceptions.
Right.
And so what if there are no exceptions? There's no exception to everyone has calm within them. You're not an exception.
Right. What I found useful in that, I love that question that you're posing. And what I have found useful in that is if you take it to a different realm that we're all very used to. Oh, I know people run out of breath when they've been running too long, but I shouldn't because I'm only 30. Or I know people can get fat if they only eat at McDonald's, but I really like McDonald's food. Like, if you could hear yourself say something where you're like, well, what makes your body any different from anybody else's body? If you're eating at McDonald's 3 times a day, you're going to gain weight. I mean, it's just the facts. You can't. So if we're able to, so that's kind of worked with my clients, is to take that sort of that spiritual truth, whatever it is, as you said, then the but, and then my exception. That seems kind of silly in many, 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 many realms, right? My child has a very painful diaper rash, but she shouldn't because I've had 3 other children and none of them had one. Okay, right? I mean, do you know what I mean? Like you can see the disconnect there in other parts of life. And I think part of our goal in those of us that love teaching the principles, love pointing at the principles, is to say there are no exceptions in that direction either. And it's going to feel a lot better to live in your own skin once you accept the operating manual. Yeah.
My spouse or my wife or my significant other loves me, but... And whenever you get into that, it's in the personal realm, it's in the specific, it's not in the general expansive. Mm-hmm. And that is a way that you're getting into your own head. Mm-hmm. limiting your connection to your own wellness,
Mm-hmm.
your own equilibrium, like you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking yourself out of there by contracting around ideas, thoughts in your head.
Yeah, you're getting yourself out of your ability. You're not looking in the direction of self-correction. You're fighting the fact that there's self-correction, right? I mean, in where I live in the Northeast, when we're learning how to drive, and they say winter driving, and you're on slippery roads, and your car starts to swerve on the ice, you let it go and go with the swerve, and everything in you wants to unswerve and overcorrect, but that's not the safe thing to do. So we do learn to say, oh, okay, this might be counterintuitive, but I'm going to do what the driving instructor told me to do. And many a person has escaped difficulty by doing something that seems counterintuitive, and going for that more common sense, that grander design of human experience that we all share, as opposed to getting in. There's a group in the world called Alcoholics Anonymous, and I learned this in Alcoholics Anonymous, the term terminally unique. There are people that say, you drink too if you had my life. You take drugs too if you had my wife. You do the, and like, you don't understand, to whoever they might be dialoguing with, and they feel uniquely unique, like that they're the only human being that's ever come across, something that's standing in the way of happiness or contentment, and felt like they needed to bypass it by drinking it or smoking it or something. So that terminal uniqueness is kind of what I'm hearing in what you're saying, with people say, but yeah.
Yeah, they're identifying with a story, and of course that story feels real and it feels like who I am, but it's a personalization of life, of events that aren't necessarily personal. Spiritual truth is impersonal. I'd like to invite Katrina, if you'd like to join our conversation at this point.
Yeah.
If you have any questions
or comments. One of the things that I've always struggled a little bit with the word impersonal, because it sounds cold and distant, whereas I feel like mind or God or internal wisdom is very personal. It's like the deepest part of me. It's the most real part of me. So that word impersonal is always a little bit of a head shaker for me, like it seems like where the personal mind, meaning my little mind that's, building a case for why all these issues or need my attention, and I don't have to wait till my mind calms down before I can wait for something to emerge. And when something emerges, it comes from the impersonal mind. It just sounds, like I say, counterintuitive. Yeah.
Yeah, Katrina, you can just listen and daydream about the way that your mind is working.
Yeah.
Just relax into that.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting that you have that judgment around those words.
Yeah.
Around those labels.
Yeah.
Because of course they're just labels, the impersonal versus personal. Because I think that we can say, oh, the personal is me, and then the impersonal is not me. And that's how it can feel,
right?
How it can look.
Yeah. So
yes, that people will have trouble with those terms if they're going to view it in that way. But what if the impersonal was you too? It was who you really are.
Right. But in terms of the word impersonal being used for the first 50 years of my life, if something was impersonal, it was cold and distant and not none of my business or unrelated to me, or so impersonal felt, I went into their house, it was so impersonal, or it was so, so that it's just a carryover of the word usage that I was used to. But yeah, it's the personal me and the impersonal me, or the Wendy that looks like she's distinct from Rich and from Katrina and from Angelina and whomever in the world, when we're all actually related and of the human family. It can look, the words can be Wendy personal and Wendy collective, collective with all of humanity. I don't know. So anyway, it's a side, anyway, I just thought it just struck me when we were talking about the word impersonal. I was like, oh yeah, that's been a tripping point, because I know how it's being used in this conversation, but I also feel like it's got some leftover head trash for me. Yeah.
It'll do that. You have head trash up in there?
I do. It's at a lower level, and I take it out much more often than I used to.
There's a quote that I love. I think it's from Sid. He says, "Everyone has a mental waste basket, and we would be a lot healthier if we learn to use it."
Yeah, there you go. Yes, I think I remember that too. I don't remember what book that's from, but yeah, exactly. I was having a conversation with my husband this morning, and like I said, we've got some things that are staring us down, and so, he was making some very overarching statements of his overall ability, making statements about his friends not seeming to be as friendly as they should be or could be, and why haven't they come calling, and like grand, big, overarching statements. And I'm learning to try not to talk him out of those feelings, but just let him vocalize them, and for me to just be a calm presence and just hear him and stroke his hand or whatever. But I used to try to be little Polly Sunshine and try to talk him out of things and say, look at it from this way. Look at it this way. The glass is half full all the time. And that's both before and since the principles. But in the last couple of years, I think I have learned even more that capital T truth is going to come through a lot more clearly if it comes through Jeff's inner sanctuary than it's going to come from me speaking words into his ear. So I've appreciated that about myself, even though I am a nurse and I want to rescue people and make them feel better and all that good stuff. No, much better to come from within.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So that's the way I cultivate calm for myself too, is that I don't get revved up when somebody that I love is in distress. My calm would kind of go into overdrive, or like, okay, what can I do? Who can I call? How can I, what can I cook them? What can I bake them? What can I bring them? What can I do? What can I do? Blah, 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 blah. And so, is that trust that that they'll be okay. Maybe not as quickly as I might want them to be. Maybe they won't, but that they have what it takes to move through. And that's calming for me. And I think that calm is, what's the word? Transferable, or it's helpful for that person to be in the presence of a calming presence rather than somebody that's meeting them toe to toe with like, well, I know, but did you think about this? Did you think about that? Let's do this. Let's do that. You can kind of ratchet things up. But when you're a calm and you wait with them and stand by them in a support, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I used to think that I needed to not be okay if somebody else wasn't okay. I didn't understand the separate realities, and it's not allowing them their experience.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it was my wife whenever she was not okay. That's not, no, we can't have that. And because I felt like if she wasn't okay, then things were really bad. Because she's so grounded. She's like amazing.
Yeah.
She is a rock.
Right.
And so
she was like your barometer. She was a barometer for you.
Yeah, she was my barometer. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
For a very long time. And still can be, of course.
Yeah.
But if you allow other people their experience, if you are connected with your own wellness, and maybe not connected with your own wellness, but you're just there, not trying to save them, not trying to bring them up.
I hope you notice that I'm on my phone, and there's a reason why, because I just thought of something absolutely beautiful that I stole from a couple of sources, but I put it together in a document. Have you ever heard of the term sistering? Sistering. To sister. It is a verb. Yeah. And it's a construction term. So do you mind if I read this? Because it's quite beautiful and it's really speaking to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Carpentry, support both given and needed. Carpenters know that the building block of a structure is the joist, Joist. A joist is a special strong beam that supports a greater structure. Sometimes a joist has to carry such a heavy load that it starts to weaken. When that happens, the carpenter connects another board to the left of the weakening board. If that doesn't strengthen it enough, the carpenter connects another board to the right, and with that extra support, the joist is strong enough to carry almost anything. Guess what this process of joist strengthening is called? Sistering. Sistering. You can't build a strong, beautiful, complicated structure, whether it's a building or a life, without sistering. Sometimes life's load gets so hard and heavy for any one of us to carry alone. I think the hard is purposeful. It's because it creates a need for other people. If everything feels too heavy right now, it might mean that you need or could use someone to your left and someone to your right to help steady you and strengthen you and hold you together. It might be time for a sister joist. I find that I, Wendy, find that life moves between being sistered and sistering others. My husband is an amazing sistering presence in my life, and I hope I'm sistering him well in season 2. And my favorite thing about being part of a sister joist is that you don't have to say the right thing. You just have to stand there. Sistering is the best part of life because when I'm weak, then I'm strong. Find your sister joists. They are surely in your midst. And lean on the one, in my case, I'm talking about God here, who knows every hair on your head, who created you in your mother's womb and loves you big. That one is surely sistering you, whether you feel it or not. Now, this came into my life years before the principles, but I heard the principles loud and clear in that, in terms of deep listening to another person, just being there, a silent support to somebody allows that strength, that inner guide to be made known to the person that's feeling weaker and overburdened. So I just really love that. And I felt like it just seemed to fit with what we were talking about.
I like that you also brought up the backbone of who we are, the life that's living us, because that is really our shared.
Yes,
It's our
exactly.
shared
Exactly. Yep.
support.
It's our shared support. And
Yeah.
sometimes the support could be whispering the truth in somebody's ear. Don't forget, you're feeling, you're thinking. Don't forget, the nature of experience is that we can feel our thinking and get caught up. Don't forget. That can be the sistering support for other people. So yeah, the life of community or the life of the collective is just beautiful to me.
The other thing that's important too is that you can do that for yourself. You can do that in a lot of ways when you are feeling low. It's almost like you lean back, you kind of let go, because I think a lot of us think that we have to hold ourselves together.
That's right.
Especially when we're feeling like we've got a crack in our foundation. So we're holding ourselves together. We're afraid.
Yeah.
But there is a support, like you said, that whether we see it or not, that we can relax back into.
Yep.
And then we can be there for ourselves.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not to imply that we need to run and go get other people, like it's not the doing, as we say in the principles, right? It isn't the doing. And there's a reason why I love a call like this, and I love connecting with you, because it reminds me. I love connecting with Katrina and Angelina because it reminds me. I'm in book groups and other conversations and coaching groups because it reminds me. And so I really love to be reminded of it. And then there are people who get reminded of it or told about it once and they go, got it. And there, that we've heard the story, apocryphal story about supposedly Sid said, when you're in your car and the cassette tape with my teachings on it and you get a good feeling, punch this cassette tape out and throw it out of the car and go live your life. And there are many, many people who are in a different place because they understand this inside out paradigm of how we work. And then there are people, I could self-describe myself as a nerd. I love talking about it. I love deepening. I love discussing. So, but it's not required by any means. Once you understand the operating instructions, you're like, oh, got it. And you carry on.
Yeah, but that's not the end of the story, and we wouldn't want it to be the end of the story. Like, life is still going to life, even after you have the understanding and
oh yeah,
and like holidays are gonna be hard and hard, and Sid would say it's still a contact sport.
Yeah. Yep.
Even after this. And so,
of course.
And guess what? You're still human. This
right.
doesn't take away your humanity. You wouldn't want it to.
No.
You're still going to have feelings. You're still going to have thinking. But you are just maybe going to go through it slightly more gracefully and maybe not.
Well, I think that the opportunity is there to be graceful on Tuesday and ungraceful on Wednesday and medium graceful on Thursday, for sure. But in general terms, when I look back over the past 3 months, 6 months, year, 5 years, I don't operate like I used to at all. I just don't get revved up like I used to. And the calm is just much closer at hand than it ever used to be. And it was always there, but I didn't know about it until I knew about it. And now that I know about it, I take advantage of it all the time, as much as I can. And again, not every day, but yeah.
I don't know if you've experienced this, but I'm calling it reverse nostalgia, where it's like an in the moment, it's a nostalgia for what you're experiencing right now, but you're seeing it from a future perspective. So you're thinking, this is going to be such an amazing memory, but you're experiencing it right now. I had a moment last night, and I think this is what comes through when we're in this calm. I had this moment last night where my baby was playing upstairs, and I could just see upstairs this soft light coming through, and she's just absorbed in some activity, just playing. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Katrina.
And she's just playing, and then I'm experiencing this wonderful understanding of the reverse, of just knowing that it's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah. Such a gift. I think to be able to say, yeah, this girl playing with her toys with the light shining just as it is just, I can't wait to recall this again, because she's not going to be doing this a week from now or 10 years from now. You know what I mean? Like, so that's a gift that not everybody has, to kind of really, what did you call it? Reverse nostalgia. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's a lovely way of being present, like talk about, that's a good conversation for you to have with somebody, cultivating reverse nostalgia, because that's literally being in the moment. And yeah. My father-in-law just sent me a picture today of he and she's not a new girlfriend, but a girlfriend of his wife died 5 years ago, and he has been with this other woman for the past couple of years. And he just sent me this gorgeous picture of him and this girlfriend. Her doesn't matter what her name is, but anyway, and she's significantly shorter than him. It's kind of funny, but they're both there in their winter parkas, and they both have a cup of hot chocolate, and they're at a Christmas light display yesterday evening, and somebody took their picture and he sent it to me. I'm like, that is lovely. And he's 88 years old. I'm like, how great is that he's got this experience of getting himself to a light display, getting a couple of hot chocolates, and enjoying companionship with somebody he cares deeply about, and he's dressed appropriately. I mean, just what you said, I was nostalgic saying, someday when I'm with the family, we're sharing stories about Grandpa who's gone on to the great beyond, I'm going to bring out my phone and go, he sent me this picture the day after Thanksgiving. It's just lovely, Mm-hmm. So I get a little glimmer of what you're saying.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Wendy, thank you for coming and joining us today.
It's been a great conversation.
If people want to reach out to you or find you, please share that. Take some opportunity to also share. I think you have a podcast as well.
I do have a
podcast.
Fresh and yes.
So share that.
Fresh and new. It's called Two Nurses and a Therapist. Very cleverly called. And our goal is to talk to colleagues in the healthcare field who are overwhelmed, burning out, thinking of leaving the profession. Staying in the profession is not our goal. Our goal is just to help our fellow healthcare workers understand the psychological health that we're all born with. And if they're like the three of us who have been in the principals for a few years and never heard this in our respective schools and never heard this in the general population about how the mind works, we want to shine a light on that. So it's called Two Nurses and a Therapist. It's on all the major podcast channels. And I would say, if you're squeamish at all, we might start talking about blood and guts or whatever. But other than that, the concepts are the same. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. We're talking about anxiety or this or burnout, that. Anybody should be able to get something from it, but we might start getting jargony with nurse and doctory kind of talk. But so thank you for asking about that. And then the other way to get in touch with me is my website, which is called www.forwardwithwendy.com. So it's forwardwithwendy.com. And I'd be glad to I send out a health note a couple times a week that are kind of light. I think you might subscribe, I think.
I'm a
so
subscriber.
Yeah. So I think they're kind of lightweight. They're not too heavy, not too long, but hopefully they help point in the direction of how we can depend on that psychological system. So be glad to have anybody, if they want to get one of those notes, there's a way on the website to do that. So
cool. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you again, Rich. It was lovely.